Now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline for another Matich Monday is ESPN college football expert Trevor Matich, national champion as well. Trevor, how was your weekend?
It was terrific. There's so much to be thankful for, and it was just manifest this weekend as well. I just am very grateful to have the blessings that I do, and I give thanks every day.
Absolutely, and especially to watch rivalry weekend college football. Speaking of, BYU and Utah State fit into that late on Saturday night. What did you think of BYU's overall performance against the Aggies in that 28-10 win?
I thought it was slow on offense to start. I thought the defense was magnificent all game, and the defense got them going with that scoop and score in the first half. And it was a typical BYU game this year. They have a lot of things going against them from a standpoint of being in the first year of a new systems on both sides of the ball and everything else. But they fought and they scraped and they battled, and they finally got the upper hand, and they won their 8th game of the year, which is an astonishing thing. If you would have said coming into the season that they would win 8 games in the regular season, I think most people would have taken you down to have your head examined. So they played exceptionally well, and this game was typical of the games that they played this year.
The blackout uniforms were awesome with the royal blue. That was sweet, and it was sweet to have senior night with Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams. Unfortunately, Taysom Hill gets hurt again, Trevor. A little reckless on a hurdle. He hyperextends his elbow. Your thoughts on, unfortunately, Taysom Hill getting hurt again and against Utah State, 3rd time.
Again, yeah, that's he shouldn't set foot in the city of Logan for the rest of his life, I would think. It is, it's so unfortunate that he got hurt. If we take it from the positive standpoint, I'm so glad that he was able to go through to the last game of the regular season to be able to get in a senior season that was truly remarkable, because without Taysom Hill, they wouldn't have been able to have this great success that they did this year. And I think he set this new coaching administration off on a terrific path with great momentum. I think that him being injured does just allow the fans once again to put him into an iconic place among BYU quarterbacks, not because of winning championships and things like that, but because of what he gave to the program and what he meant to the program. The injuries that he came back from, most of them would have been career-ending injuries for a lot of people, especially that Liz Frank injury to his foot. And yet he battled back, and he battled to win the job this year, and there was nothing given to him. He earned the job this year. And then he led this team through a minefield of a very difficult schedule. And I think fans can look at him now, in retrospect to his career, as having had one of the most meaningful and impactful careers in BYU history from a standpoint of what he meant to his teammates, what he meant to the program, and what he meant to the fans.
You talk about the BYU quarterback greats, and Taysom Hill passed a guy like Jim McMahon in total yards of offense with his performance against Utah State. Where should he rank among all of the BYU quarterbacks? And we're talking about guys that are iconic to this football program.
Right. In terms of what number I would put him at, I don't know that I could do that. What I would say is that for the things that we've just talked about, I would put him in the list with those folks. I mean, the Jim McMahons, the Steve Youngs, the Ty Detmers, et cetera, for different reasons. I mean, Robbie Bosco won a national championship. Ty Detmer won a Heisman Trophy. Jim McMahon elevated BYU to the national stage in the way nobody had done before him. Mark Wilson did that the year before Jim McMahon did it. Steve Young became an iconic college quarterback who went on to an NFL Hall of Fame career. And so you look at all the success that those guys had on the field, and if you just compare numbers, then you can pull out that number with total yardage and things like that with McMahon. And you could do that, and I think that's fair. But at the same time, I think the meaning to the program is more important because of what he's done, especially this year to fight back from those injuries. Because keep this in mind, that BYU's culture is now set. The positive feeling about the program is now set. Recruiting will be much, much easier going forward from this season, in part because of what Taysom Hill brought to this program and because of how he fought back from catastrophic injuries to do his part to deliver that kind of a send-off to the underclassmen and to this coaching staff going forward. And I think when you put that all together, you can put him in the group with the top quarterbacks that have ever played at BYU.
There was some mediocre quarterback play in 2010 and 11, and BYU and even 12, and BYU emerged from that with the greatest dual threat in its history. Jamal Williams, the greatest rusher by yards in BYU history, played his final game. This season, when you look back at it, Jamal Williams has been the offense. We've joked that it's Jamal fence, but I think that was manifest yet again on Saturday, Trevor.
Yeah, and that's another thing, that Jamal can be seen the same way as probably the greatest running back in BYU history, certainly among them, but I think he is the greatest running back in BYU history. And it's the same gift he's given now to the program going forward that Taysom Hill has done. Because when you watch him run, he ran with an angry physicality that would have been well at home in the Big Ten or the SEC. He had a joyful enthusiasm for the game. You put those two things together, and he had a huge impact on the culture of this program. This program is tougher going now into the second year next year of the Kalani Sitake regime than it would have been without Jamal Williams. This program has more joy than it would have been without Jamal Williams, and this program is coming off an 8-win season in a season where they were only favored, I believe, in 3 of their games preseason, 3 or 4. They come off with an 8-win season that sends them with great momentum into the future, again, in part, large part, because of Jamal Williams. And for the same reasons that we can say that Taysom Hill can be counted among the great quarterbacks of BYU history, not just numbers, but impact, I think Jamal Williams has to be counted as one of, if not the, greatest running back in the history of this program.
8-4 BYU now headed to the Poinsettia Bowl as we talk with ESPN's Trevor Matich, and it would appear the opponent will likely be either San Diego State or Wyoming. I know there's an outside chance that a couple of other programs could sneak in there, but right now it looks like the Aztecs or the Cowboys. Which game would you prefer for BYU to play out of those two in San Diego?
Well, I think Wyoming would probably be the game they're most likely to win. Wyoming's offense is pretty balanced, is pretty good. They throw the ball better than people give them credit for. They don't throw it much, but when they do, they get big yards out of it. And their running game is pretty solid. But their defense can be had with a strong running game, and that's exactly what BYU has. San Diego State, I think, is more balanced all around, and they have Donnell Pumphrey at running back, who is in the Heisman Trophy conversation. And the reason San Diego State would be a great opponent for BYU is that people would see if they're able to slow down Donnell Pumphrey and beat San Diego State, then I think people would see that as even a better quality win than a win over a Wyoming or anybody else that might be there. No disrespect to Wyoming or the rest, but just Pumphrey and San Diego State have gotten a lot of national respect. And I think that would be another thing that could, with the win, send them into the offseason with even greater momentum.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. That could potentially be BYU's best win on the schedule. So we'll see. You can argue that, and we'll have like 8 months to do that. Let's go wide picture with the college football playoff now. Here we are in the final week before the playoff is announced. Who is going to make it, Trevor? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, there's chalk, and then there's crazy.
Okay, who's chalk?
Okay, chalk would be Alabama, Clemson, Washington, and then either the Big 12 champ or Ohio State. And so if you say, I think there's a better chance for the Big 12 making it if their champ is Oklahoma State than it is Ohio State, because excuse me, let me say that again. I got my states all messed up. If the Sooners are the champions of the Big 12, the Buckeyes have a head-to-head over them, and they have the same record. The Buckeyes have a better record. If the Oklahoma State Cowboys are the Big 12 champ, then I think there's a better chance for them to beat out Ohio State for that 4th spot, because they will have that conference championship, and Ohio State will not. And there is no head-to-head between the Buckeyes and the Cowboys. So, that's where Ohio State will be teetering on the edge of 4 or 5.
You don't think the Big Ten champ has a shot to get in here?
Yeah, well, the Big 12, they do. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is where tremendous chaos is, right? I think if the Big Ten champ is Penn State, then you must put Penn State in ahead of the pecking order, ahead of Ohio State. Because they beat them head-to-head.
Yes.
Penn State won the division Ohio State is in.
Yes.
And Penn State will have won the conference that Ohio State is in should they beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship.
But Penn State has 2 losses and 1 to Pitt.
Right, but Penn State has all those three things, including the head-to-head over Ohio State. So people that look at Ohio State and say, yeah, but they're a better team than Penn State, I would point to the committee's written guidelines that say you have to be unequivocally better if you're a non-champ to be elevated over a champion. And because Ohio State doesn't even have the head-to-head over Penn State, they lost that. I don't know how you could say they're unequivocally better. At the same time, it would just be tremendously damaging to college football. If you took a Penn State that has head-to-head division champ, conference champ over Ohio State, and then sit them down in favor of Ohio State. So if Penn State wins it and only one team goes from the Big Ten, then that has to be Penn State. They can do Penn State and Ohio State together and then seed them whatever way they want. But they cannot do Ohio State and not Penn State. Well, Ohio State has an advantage is that they have got head-to-head over Wisconsin if Wisconsin wins the Big Ten. And they've got a better record than Wisconsin. And they will have beaten more teams that will finish the season ranked in the top 10 than Wisconsin. And Wisconsin will have conference championship. And so it will give the committee the opportunity to choose which do they value more, quality wins plus head-to-head, or fewer quality wins, not head-to-head, but conference championship, and that's where Ohio State has a chance to step above.
Holy cow.
It's interesting. I can't wait. And Washington is sitting there with kind of a weaker strength of schedule, but only the one loss to, like, the hottest team in America, not named Alabama, USC. So I can't wait. There's going to be 2 or 3 teams that are going to be upset this week. It's going to be great.
Yeah, no, it could be crazy. Now let me give you ultimate make your head explode.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a path. It's not likely, but it's possible that the Big Ten could get 3 teams in the playoffs.
Michigan sneaks in.
Yeah, well, here's the path. Now, this is not likely. I'm not saying it's going to happen, so don't pull your Twitter hammies on your thumbs in trying to tweet out that I just said this is going to happen.
Your Twitter hammies. Oh, my goodness.
Now, this requires that Virginia Tech beat Clemson in the ACC championship game, which is not out of the question. It requires Oklahoma to win the Big 12 and Colorado to win the Big 10. Now, if that happens, the ACC is out. If that happens,
and the Pac-12.
Not necessarily, because Colorado will have beaten a team that will finish in the top 10. If they beat Washington will end up in the top 10 when it's all said and done, and that will be a top 10 win for Colorado, which will bolster their schedule. So them at 11-2, they have a chance. But here's the scenario where your head explodes, right? Now, let's say that let's just pick it. Say Wisconsin wins the Big Ten. Ohio State and Michigan will have both beaten the Big Ten champion, and will both have a record equal to or better than the Big Ten champion. Ohio State will have beaten the Big 12 champion, Oklahoma, and will have a better record than Oklahoma. Michigan will have beaten the Pac-12 champ, Colorado, head-to-head, and they will have the same number of losses as Colorado, 2 losses. So you will have, if this happens, you will have Ohio State and Michigan will have beaten the champions of the Big 10, the Big 12, and the Pac-12.
Wow.
There will be 4-0 between them, 4-0 over the champions of the Big 10, Big 12, and Pac-12, 4-0. And Ohio State and Michigan individually will have more wins over teams that will finish in the top 10 than the champion of the Big 10, Big 12, or Pac-12. Now, that is an excuse to elevate Ohio State over the Big 12 champ, Oklahoma, Michigan over the Pac-12 champ, Colorado, to have 3 Big 10 teams in the playoff against Alabama. Now.
And they all lose to Alabama.
Yeah, they always tell them. That's right.
Chaos,
now, is that going to happen? No, I doubt it. I'd be kind of really surprised if that happened. But there is a plausible way for that to happen, and so people outside of the Big Ten, your head may commence to ache.
Yes. In comparison to relativity, that seems very complicated.
Yeah,
I love it.
It is. But much wailing and gnashing of teeth at the possibility. So here's the deal: as you watch the Big Ten. As you watch the final games here for Oklahoma State, if Oklahoma's winning, if Colorado beats Washington, and if Virginia Tech beats Clemson, if all those 3 things happen, then it's up to how a dozen or so people in an air-conditioned room with catered barbecue and ice cream feel about the whole thing. And so, boy, that'll be some tension.
College Football Chaos Theory, presented by Professor Trevor Matich on Matich Monday, part of BYU Sports Nation. Great stuff, Trevor.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's my head hurts.
Thanks, Trevor.
I don't mind if your head hurts or if my head hurts. I just want the audience, their head not to hurt until later.